Hello everybody and welcome back to Deck Tech for Decks. I've got an exciting one for you today, but before we get into it, please, all I ask is that if you enjoy the video, drop a like and consider subscribing. Alright, and without further ado, let's get into this. I'm calling this deck Maren Eldrazi's. I don't know if you guys know this, but on top of being big giant creatures, Eldrazi's has this subtype called Eldrazi drones. And what these little guys do is whenever they enter the battlefield, they create these colorless Eldrazi spawn creature tokens that you can sacrifice for a mana. Kind of sounds like treasure, right? I mean, not as powerful because it can't be any color, but it's still pretty powerful, and it's going to trigger Maren, letting us get those experience counters. So without further ado, let's look into some of these creatures. We've got Birthing Hulk. This guy's going to enter the battlefield. We're going to get some of those Scion tokens, and we're going to be able to regenerate him if we want to keep him on the field. We then have Blight Herder. This one, same thing, going to enter the battlefield. We get 3 of those Eldrazi Scion creature tokens, and that's all we're wanting to do. That's ramp, and we can sacrifice these guys, bring them back, get those Scion tokens back onto the battlefield. We have the ability to create a ton of ramp with these guys. Blister Pod, same thing. This one's 1 mana. They come cheap. Not all of them are super expensive. Brood Monitor, of course, right after I say none of them are expensive, this guy shows up. Catacomb Sifter, this one's really good because on top of that, you can use it to scry, right? So whenever one of our creatures dies, we're going to be scrying. Dead Drone, this one, same thing. Just going to get those Scion tokens. Kozilek's Creator, this one, same thing. It's going to enter in the battlefield. We get 2 of those tokens. And then Nest Invader. Again, pretty cheap, and we're going to create those tokens. That's just all we're going to be doing. Scion Summoner. This one, again, we're just creating a lot of those little tokens. And notably, keep in mind, every time we sacrifice one of these little tokens, we're going to gain an experience counter. And that's going to be amazing when we bring the big Eldrazi out, right? Sifter of Skulls. Not only is this going to create a lot of them, but it's going to be very efficient ramp because this is going to generate a lot of value throughout the game. Well, I'm sure you're like, oh, that's pretty cool. I know that's not why you're here. You want to see the big shit we're going to be reanimating after we get those experience counters to an insane level. So let me introduce you to It That Betrays. This card's insane. Every time we attack, people are going to have to sacrifice their 2 permanents. And on top of that, we've got a lot of ways to make our opponents sacrifice stuff anyway. So whenever they do, we're going to get that because, that's just how he goes. Finally, Kozilek the Great Distortion. It lets you draw some cards. You can counter stuff in black and green, so that's kind of insane. It's a graveyard deck, so we need stuff in our graveyard anyway, so might as well counter a spell and send it to the graveyard. Ulamog's Crusher, this guy's insane. Just 8/8 with Annihilator too. What's not to like about that? Ulamog the Ceaseless Hunger, I know you guys knew he'd be in here. This guy's just going to make you exile a lot of your library and exile 2 target permanents, so that's pretty notable there. Mikaeus the Unhallowed, this is going to be really good because whenever our little guys go to the graveyard, they're just going to come right back, give us more Scions. That's going to give us a lot of mana to work with. Tegrid, God of Frights. You saw all that Annihilator. Now imagine it's just It That Betrays with extra steps at that point, right? It's cheaper. Lorcan, Warlock, Collector. This one's really good too because, again, we're just stealing our opponent's stuff and we're going to use it against them. Yes, we have to pay life, but there's some ways to gain life in this deck, so we're not going to be too upset about that. Pathbreaker Ibex. Remember, we're creating all these little Scion creature tokens, and this makes them a little cooler than treasures because treasures can't really attack. Hey, there's ways to make it happen, but treasures can't attack, right? They're not creatures. Pathbreaker Ibex is going to make it to where, I don't know, all of them have 8/8 power, so that's going to be pretty interesting. Beledros Witherbloom. This guy's going to create those pest tokens, which is going to also up those experience counters. And he's going to give that little ability where you get to untap all your lands. Alright guys, it's a Maren deck, so let's get some shit into the graveyard. We've got Greater Good. This is one of my favorite green cards. It draws you cards, fills that graveyard. Hey, I listed some 8/8s. Drawing 8 cards and only having to discard 3, that's pretty good. Body Launderer. We're going to have a lot of creatures in this deck dying. That's what this deck wants to do. And every time that happens, we're going to connive. Draw the card, discard a card. That's going to be some card advantage right there. Satyr Wayfinder. This one's really efficient because this is going to be one of those cards where we're just going to throw them in the graveyard, bring them back, and then throw them back in the graveyard. Repeat that and just get value. Altar of Dementia. You guys knew this was in here. Drawing 8 cards is pretty good, but just chucking 8 cards to the graveyard in this deck is also really good. Out of the Tomb. I'm really giving this card a shot, man. It seems insane. I haven't got the opportunity to test it much yet, but the first turn it triggers, you get 2, and then 4, and then 6. It seems pretty insane. We've then got Cavalier of Thorns. Just a very efficient way to chuck stuff in the graveyard. I love the Cavalier cycle, and I shove it in any deck I can get away with, honestly. Buried Alive. This one, just chuck 3 of your best creatures into the graveyard. Notably, that's whatever you need at the time. We've got a lot of removal in the deck. We've got a lot of creature-based ramp. We've got whatever you need in the form of a creature in this deck. So this card's really useful. World Shaper. This card performs, right? We're milling a lot of cards into our graveyard, and then we sacrifice this guy, and we're just going to get all of the lands onto the battlefield. The amount of times I've just gotten 5, 6 lands off of this guy, it's not zero, and it happens quite often, honestly. Alright guys, let's get into that removal. This deck has some very interesting removal. We've got Canoptic Tomb Sentinel. I told you guys I was really excited about this whenever this was in the Necron Precon, and I'm using it right here. We're just going to keep bringing it back from the graveyard and exiling a target non-land permanent. That's insane. It'll get rid of whatever your problem is as long as it's not a bunch of tokens. Hey, and let's say it is a lot of tokens. Let's just bring Massacre Worm into the mix, right? Not only are we going to get rid of all those tokens, but they're going to take damage for it. We then have just standard stuff like Plague Crafter, Caustic Caterpillar, Reclamation Sage, Fleshbag Marauder, Merciless Executioner. Imagine like we're getting all of this stuff we're killing when we're casting these edict effects, right? Just bring Merciless Executioner into the field, pay life equal to the CMC of the creature that died, and we get it back onto our field. If that betrays on the field, we just get, there's lots of scenarios where we're just going to be getting our opponent's creatures. Necron Deathmark, again, just really efficient ramp, and it mills, so it's doing the 2 things that we want to do. Acidic Slime, this card's just very efficient. It gets rid of a lot of stuff, those lands or whatever we need to do. Next up, we have Cavalier of Knights, and this guy's pretty insane in the deck. There's a little combo going on here. It's not infinite, but you can do it like once a turn. We've got Cavalier of Knights and then Illuminator Saras. And then as long as Eternal Witness is in your graveyard, all you have to do is sack Cavalier of Knights to Illuminator Saras, target Eternal Witness with Cavalier of Knights' ability to bring a card of 3 CMC or less from the graveyard to the battlefield, and then boom! You've got 5 mana and Cavalier of Knights is back in your hand, and you can go ahead and cast him. Now, notably, Illuminator Saras will be tapped at that point, so there's no way to repeat it, but that alone is pretty effective, and it's going to get rid of a board state pretty quickly. Notably, when he enters the battlefield, all you have to do is sacrifice Eternal Witness, and you're set up to do that again next turn. Pretty cool, yeah? Next up, we have Bane of Progress, and he is exactly that. With all these treasures that are in the format right now, this guy's going to drop, grab 10 artifacts, half of them are treasures, and just be massive. We then have Chatterfang Squirrel General. This guy is pretty insane because of the amount of tokens we're going to be creating in the deck, so he's really efficient removal. The Meat Hook Massacre. This one got banned in Standard, so time for us to get to use it for a little bit. This one's going to be pretty crazy because not only whenever a creature you control dies, each opponent's going to lose a life, but whenever a creature an opponent control dies, you gain a life. And it's got that board wipe thing on there too. So this can literally in the game if it stays on the board long enough, especially with how much creatures we're going to be just chucking into the graveyard. Let's talk about some card draw we got in the deck. We've got Triarch Praetorian. This guy, you're just going to recur him from the graveyard, and he's just going to draw you some cards. Grim Horspex. Whenever one of our creature dies, notably non-token, we're going to go ahead and draw a card. Skull Clamp. This one's going to be amazing because we can just, start skull clamping those little Scion tokens and just get the value. Midnight Reaper. Same thing. Non-token creatures. We're going to go ahead and draw cards. Underrealm Lich. This card is insane. He's technically card replacement, but with a commander like Maren, he can definitely double as card draw. The Great Hinge. This card's insane. Not only is it ramp, but it does draw you a card every time you cast a non-token creature, or every time a non-token creature enters the battlefield. So this card's gonna be pretty crazy in the deck. Evolutionary Leap. This one's really underrated. I don't see it played enough. It guarantees that you're going to get a creature whenever you sacrifice something, so it's always going to be gas. If you need a land, that sucks, but we're trying to play creatures here, so this is going to work out. Smothering Abomination notably fits into that Eldrazi theme, and this guy doesn't give a shit if it's a token, if it's a creature, you're just going to draw a card. Disciple of Bolas. Remember those 8/8s I was talking about? Sacrificing them to gain 8 life and draw 8 cards? Oh man, that's going to feel so good. And with Maren, that 8/8's just going to come back, and you're just going to be able to do that again. Molder Vine Reclamation. This one, whenever a creature dies, you go ahead, gain a life, and draw a card. Notably, this one doesn't give a shit if it's a token or not either. I really like cards like that. Solemn Simulacrum, this one over the course of a game is going to generate you a lot of value, because not only every time it dies are you going to go ahead and draw that card, but it's going to be ramp as well. And with Maren, we can just keep bringing him back and bringing him back. That's going to do it for the brunt of the deck, but we've got some little miscellaneous stuff left that we've got to cover. Spore Frog, this guy's a menace. I can't tell you how many times I've sacked this over and over to someone that's, I don't know, indestructible, can't kill them. It's a 50-50 creature. They keep swinging at you, and this little 1/1 Spore Frog says, "No, not today." They get so, visibly angry. I love this guy. Vasir Seer, you know this guy was in the deck. He's just very functional. Eternal Witness, as mentioned earlier. Finally, Zulaport Cutthroat. This one, like I said, over the course of a game, can win you the game. Carrion Feeder, just very efficient for what he is. Dothy Voidwalker. I'm really excited about this one because we're just going to be able to keep bringing him back. Yes, it's annoying while he's there, but it's like, okay, he's going to cast that card and go away. Well, he's not going to go away in this deck. We're just going to keep him around. He's going to be our pal. Fauna Shaman, this one's really good because not only can you tutor something to your hand, but you can later chuck it into the graveyard too. Veto, Thorn of Duskcrows. I justified including this guy because those 8/8s, right? Imagine they don't have trample, they're getting chump blocked. Well, this guy's going to make it to where they do damage in a way. Because not only is he going to give them lifelink, but whenever we gain life, we're going to have them lose that much life. So that's how I justified him. It's kind of trample in a way. Finally, we have Pitiless Plunderer and Pawn of Ulamog. This one's going to also create those little Scion tokens. Notably, Pitiless Plunder and the little Squirrel General are going to go infinite. That's just a happy accident. Sometimes it happens. They're both really good in the deck, and it sucked to cut one just because you don't like infinite combos. But if you're like that, go ahead and do it. Alright guys, that's going to do it for my deck tech. I hope you'd enjoy. Please leave a like and consider subscribing. I had a fun time making this. Let me know what you think about it in the comment section below, and any ads or includes you would include, and I'll see you in the next one.